Hey everybody, it's McGrouch. I'm back. I've been having whatever the video equivalent is of writer's block for this channel lately. I mean, I know there's tons of stuff going on, like crazy headlines, and it's almost like, I don't know, sometimes it's hard to just zero in on one or two or a handful of things to talk about because it just seems like it's so consistent that everything is just ever so slowly deteriorating in our world right now. And I've been going through some interesting things in my personal life, nothing too serious or heavy, but I don't know, I just got to thinking, you know, when I was a kid, I spent a huge portion of my childhood suicidal. I had a hard childhood, and I don't think a lot of people knew what I was going through because, from an outsider's perspective, it probably looked like I had a great home and good, if not great, parents. My parents were severely flawed, and my mother abused me, which I'll get into in more detail perhaps someday. Um, and my parents fought a lot. I mean, really, like they would throw things at each other, and then they would take their anger out on me. And I was just thinking, um, somebody else said in a video that I was watching earlier today, he said, "Today's a great day to be kind to animals." And he said every day is a great day to be kind to animals, but especially do it today. And I was just thinking, like, in those times when my parents were fighting and I was seriously contemplating ways to end my life, and I was an only child, so I didn't have a sibling to talk to. Um, there was a little dog that our family had, and her name was Apricot. She had apricot colored fur, and she would come over to me when my parents were fighting and I was crying or I was just scared on my own, and she would just curl up next to me, and you could tell she was scared too. She had her tail tucked between her legs, and she'd look up at me, and we would always share this moment where, you know, where we knew that we weren't alone. And I just want to say how thankful I am for this guy and his sister. She'd probably come running out here. She gets jealous if she hears me talking about him. But yeah, this is Alfred. I held him up on at least one other video. Yeah, he's my best friend, and this guy is just so great for morale and for emotional support. And I would never like take him into a store and say he's my emotional support dog. Although, if you do that, that's something you do, no judgment. I get it. Just don't let him crap on the floor in the grocery store. But when things are difficult or weird or tough, if cats are your thing, I like cats. I don't know why we have to be either cat or dog people. I've just always, I've been very much a dog person, and they're so loyal, man. Really. I think we're going to go through, I think a lot of people are going through hard times already, and I think the world is not necessarily going to, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I'll put it that way. We're eventually going to find stability in the world. Who knows? Maybe Jesus is coming back in our lifetime, but I wouldn't count on any kind of external force saving you out of the blue in this lifetime. I wouldn't necessarily count on things getting better. Wouldn't count on politicians or military or preachers or any kind of religion. I mean, your relationship to God is important. Your relationship with your family, of course, is very important. And I don't know about you, but I think of these little guys as part of the family. So I think things are going to get hard for them too. It's going to be difficult for people to feed their pets. There's already record numbers of people surrendering their animals, cats and dogs, and I guess other stuff too, like bunnies and ferrets, and they're in the animal shelters now. But if you got a pet, If you got a little animal in your life, go say hi to them, give them a little cuddle, give them a treat, and there's a lot of comfort there. So, and since I've been an adult, I haven't struggled with the clinical depression quite as much. I was on antidepressants for 12 years, almost 13 years. My parents and is it a psychiatrist or a psychologist? A psychiatrist, I guess. Put me on them. I mean, I okayed it, but I was 12 at the time. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And they all basically just encouraged me to stay on it for the rest of my life. And I truly believe God healed me miraculously. That's the thing with depression, suicidal thoughts, with antidepressants. Especially if you're in the Christian community, it's very difficult because you're going to find a couple camps of people. One is, oh, you are depressed? Well, your faith isn't nearly as strong as mine because I've never struggled with depression. And I mean, that is just, wow, what a Pharisaical attitude to have. And yet I've encountered that in so many so-called Christians, that they know that they're just so tight with Jesus that's why they've never struggled with such a thing. And you must not be close to God, and that's why you do struggle with it. So you'll find those people. Then you'll find the other people who are on pharmaceuticals and have been for decades or many years. And they're just like, well, hey, go on this drug. It helped me. And I don't think big pharma is the answer. But at the same time, I was on it for, like I said, 12 and a half years. From about age 12 to age 25, I was on antidepressants. And I really, truly believe, God can perform miracles. He does perform miracles. Miracles happen, right? And I believe when God chooses to, he can heal a broken leg in a heartbeat. If the people have faith, and if they ask God, and if everything lines up, and I truly do believe it happens. It's not common, and he's not going to let the wrong people see or witness something like that, because faith is something that he values, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that clinical depression is real. Now, yeah, there are some people who say they're depressed and really they're just sad, or they're throwing a tantrum over something. But there are people who have chemical imbalances in their brain. And with me, in my case, it was because I had been abused daily for years and years and years. It was hard to avoid those negative chemicals coming into my brain. And so I needed something to help curb that. And what it did was it numbed me, and in the long run, did it help me? Well, it kept me from killing myself, I guess, when I was a kid. And, it got me into adulthood where I was busier. I just had a lot going on. And eventually this was when I was living on the West Coast. The sun was out all the time. And God just said, this is the time to stop taking these antidepressants. I had been on Prozac. Then I went on Zoloft, and then I was on Celexa, and then back to Prozac. All the course of 12 and a half years. So, I'm not going to lie. It may have served me for a time, but I also feel like if I hadn't gone on them at all, I would have been better off in the long run too. So it's a double-edged sword. I guess I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. I really hate big pharma. I hate everything about them. I really think the medico-pharmaceutical complex is something that's very evil and harmful to our society. There was a quote from someone I read online one time that said, "We can no more trust the medico-pharmaceutical complex to heal us than we can trust the military-industrial complex to make us free." And wow, both of those concepts are mind-blowing, and true, so true. So if you're on an antidepressant, I don't judge you for that, especially if there were outside influences, doctors and parents and relatives pushing it on you. And it's hard to go off them. I tried to go off them many times before I was able to do it successfully. I would get panic attacks. I would get, I'd just start spazzing about everything, and I would just go right back on them because then the panic attacks would go away. It wasn't even, depression at the time that was causing me to go back on them. It was this threat of my brain not having that numbing effect constantly. There's always something there to help you, or someone, or an animal. This little guy has been just awesome throughout the years. And I'm not saying he's like a substitute for a person that loves you, or for God, or for even in some cases, the necessary medications. But by and large, I steer clear of pharmaceuticals, and my experience with them was not necessarily a pleasant one. Like I said, short term, they did the job. They changed my brain chemistry by numbing me. I really liked Garden State, the Zach Braff film. There's a couple scenes where he's talking to his dad, played by Ian Holm. He's talking about how he's just been numb because he's been on these antidepressants. And, maybe we're supposed to feel sadness and then anger. And I do find that there is a lot of truth in that, what Yoda says in Star Wars. I think it's episode 1 when he is talking to young Anakin. He says, "Much fear in your sense. Fear, the path to the dark side is. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering." And yeah, it is the path to the dark side, but you kind of have to work through it. You kind of have to feel the anger. You kind of have to feel the fear. And I think the stronger ones of us, we're gonna feel it, and we're gonna manage to overcome it somehow. I just didn't like that I was enslaved to it. I had to have it, and I had to have a doctor prescribe it, and then I had to have a pharmacist fill the prescription. It's a form of slavery. It's a form of imprisonment. And, what if I no longer had health insurance? What if I no longer had the money to pay for that? It's an addiction. It really, if you have to have it, it's an addiction. And they keep saying a lot of our prescriptions are filled overseas, and many in China, and they're a competitor. They're an enemy for all intents and purposes. And what if the poop does hit the fan? I'm not just trying to peddle fear here. I'm just saying it's better to be free than not free. And that's with everything and anything, any kind of addiction. And that's what I'm just thinking about and meditating on today. It's no joke. If you know somebody in your life who's got clinical depression, who's ever been suicidal, who's ever been on antidepressants, who's trying to go off antidepressants, try to give them the benefit of the doubt if you can. And there are lots and lots of folks that, I don't know, they do things for attention. They've had a really cushy life, and they just want to get people's sympathy. But there are also many people who are abused, and they don't want to speak out about it, or they can't speak out about it. And it takes some discernment to tell one type from the other. There aren't a lot of people out there who have that type of discernment. So maybe you're the abused person, maybe you're the person who needs some help, or maybe you're the person who's on the other end who can give that love and understanding and help. And yeah, just exercise a little bit of discernment, because if it's just somebody looking for attention, and I guess I don't really have any wisdom or pointers today on how to tell one from the other. You just kind of have to know in your heart, I guess, if it's someone you really know. Most of my friends that I grew up with had really no idea the depth of what I was dealing with. And, why am I saying that now? Is it for me? Is it for my own benefit? Because I want your pity or attention? No, that's all in the rear view for me. But I'm doing this to help somebody who's going through this right now. I don't know. Hopefully somebody sees this video. Hopefully this means something to somebody. I know I'm kind of like rambling all over and talking about dogs and pets and garden state. And start to think about a scenario where you can't get a hold of whatever medicine, whatever. What did they call it? They called it a maintenance drug. If you're on a maintenance drug, just imagine a scenario where you can't get a hold of it and think about what you would do. Because shortages are coming, supply chain interruptions are coming, and possibly a lot worse. It's coming. Might not be today, tomorrow, next week, might not even be next year, but it's coming. So think about scenarios where you can break free from any addictions or anything that you need for your well-being, your emotional well-being, physical well-being, and break free from those things if you can. If you're addicted to anything, go ahead and take steps to not be dependent on anyone or anything. That's what I'm thinking about today. And give your pets a little cuddle for me. These guys are awesome. You want to say goodbye, buddy? Take care, everybody. The Garage out.